न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणः न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे.
This verse is also from the Kathopanishad. These verses, which speak of the highest truth, are unfortunately thought of only when there is a death. So you must have read this verse only when a death occurs. Unfortunately, that's the only time people think of the Bhagavad Gita or think of the higher. And that is the only time when you are not available for higher knowledge. Because an agitated mind, a suffering mind, cannot understand anything. And that is the only time when people ask me to come and give a lecture, when there is a death in the family. That's the one time I refuse point blank, because the Bhagavad Gita is meant for the living, for the young. It's a prescription for life, not a prescription for death. And we don't want the Bhagavad Gita to get associated with death and misery and sorrow. When you're going through sorrow, you listen to the Gita, you only identify the Gita with sorrow. It's totally wrong. So, what's he saying here? This is neither born nor does it die. Existing now, it will never cease to exist. This is unborn, eternal, immutable and permanent. It is not killed when the body is killed. When he keeps saying this, you must change the word this and put I there. Then it has an impact. Tell yourself, each one of you, I am neither born nor do I die. Existing now, I will never cease to exist. I am unborn, eternal, immutable and permanent. Does it not make your hair stand on end? If it doesn't, then you're not a human being. It should do something to you. So when you suffer, like if you have motion sickness and you're in a plane and you're going through extreme turbulence, you know what it is? The plane moves in every direction possible. You feel as if your stomach is coming up. It's a painful experience if you experience motion sickness in a plane and you can't escape. At that time, tell yourself, I am Atman. I am not this body. The body can experience motion sickness because the body moves. Atman cannot move. I am immovable. And guess what? It will work. Temporarily it will work. How do I know it? I have applied it. So the more turbulent the flight is, the happier we are because we get an opportunity to put this into practice. When you go through a little pain, don't sit there and say, it's hurting, it's paining. Wake up and say, I am Atman. Atman doesn't feel any pain. You do what you have to do, go to a doctor, take an x-ray, do all that. But don't suffer. The other day I had taken someone to a dentist. And the dentist said, you know, when the dentist drill starts functioning, he hasn't even touched you. You know what happens? The patient, So the dentist rightly told her, don't suffer in anticipation. That's a terrible thing. That's what we do. We suffer in anticipation, and then when the pain comes, of course you suffer. Many times more than the actual pain. And then you suffer in retrospect because you relive that experience. You come home and say, you know, when the dentist was drilling through my teeth, I felt like I was dying. Let go. That's what it is. So, what he's doing is he's just giving pointers, indicators, approximations to what that Atman is. Because you can't capture it, we've already seen it. So why is he giving pointers? Because it's so difficult to explain. Let's take a physical thing. Suppose you are trying to explain the joy of eating an Alfonso mango to a New Zealand Aboriginal man. How will you explain? Huh? Best you can say is, it's sweet, it's orange, it's a beautiful shape. Beyond that, it's difficult, and this is a physical thing, mind you. Then when it comes to love and emotion, even hatred, anger, very difficult to express. That's why you go to Juhu beach and you see lovers sitting there, they're all silent. Have you ever met a couple who goes and jabber, jabber, jabber at each other? Means there's no love. How would you express how much you love your child? You can't. That's why every parent who talks to the child talks gibberish. It doesn't make sense what you're saying, because what he's trying to communicate is love, and language is hopelessly inadequate in communicating love. So in the end, you just give up and the child also understands. When the child feels love for you also, the child also does. Intellectual idea. When you're trying to explain maths, high-level maths, to a student, it's gone. You use formulae. And when it comes to Atman, how can you express the inexpressible? And yet these masters have done such a wonderful job. So these verses are really not meant for explaining, because you can't explain. You can only give pointers at best. But these pointers play a very valuable role in leading us up to that point. Let's take an example. Suppose you are trying to point out a crescent moon on a cloudless sky, bright cloudless sky, to another person. You see the crescent moon and say, see how beautiful it is. That other person says, where? There is no reference point for you to use to point out that crescent moon. So what you say is, say, look there out in the garden. Yes. You see the tree right in the middle of the garden? Yes. You go up the trunk. The second branch to the right. Yes. Go right to the end of that branch. Yes. And you see a twig there. Yes. At the end of that twig, you see 2 leaves fluttering in the breeze. Up to that point, you've taken the person. And then you say, now, look beyond. Look between the 2 leaves. And the other person says, I see it. What do you see? The crescent moon. Now, what is interesting is, the garden, the tree, the trunk, the branch, the twig, the 2 leaves fluttering in the breeze, none of these things have anything to do with the moon. The moon is thousands of miles away. Yet, without all these, it is impossible to point out the moon. You get it? That's what it is. So, don't hang on to these pointers, because if you hang on to these pointers, it's like hanging on to the tree. You will never see the crescent. You have to use these pointers and then suddenly look beyond, and then you get the sight. Not actual sight. You get it. So, what are the pointers? First, he says, Ajaha. Aja means unborn. Like I said, don't look at this is unborn. Atman is unborn. I am unborn. When you say unborn, means no birth, means no death, means no change. There is something in you that goes through the birth, existence, and death. But there's something else in you which is not born when the body is born, doesn't grow when the body grows, does not die when the body dies. What is it? Is the question. Just inquire. Next, Nitya, eternal, that which remains the same in the past, present, future. It's beyond time. Time has no control over it. It's an expression. Time is an expression of Atman. So, why do you see the changes? Because you're looking at the surface. It's like the ocean is deep below, but on the surface you only see the waves. The waves go through change. The waves are determined by time. There is a high tide and a low tide and all of that. But as far as the ocean is concerned, nothing is happening. It remains the same. Shashvata, changeless, is the same concept. That which never changes. It is the background against which you recognize change. See, if you're in a platform, this railway station, and you are in one train, and there is another train in the next, right next to you, and sometimes it happens, both trains start moving at the same time. You hear the sound, you feel the movement, but you look there at the other train and you feel as if you're not moving. You're moving. So what it be in a plane, you're moving at 500 miles an hour. But if there are no clouds, you feel as if you are stationary. Because there is nothing against which to measure the change. So you are perceiving change. So there must be a changeless entity against which you are recognizing the change. That changeless entity, Shashvata, is what? You haven't got it. Is me. That's what you should say. And then Purana, ancient. Many people say, throughout the scriptures, they speak of Atman as Purana. So they think of God as an old man with grey hair and a long grey beard. No. Shankaracharya says, Pura api nava eveti puranaha. It's ancient, yet ever new. Why? Because they are eternal principles that apply at all periods of time to all human beings. Pura api nava eveti puranaha, ancient. Now the interesting thing is, suppose you take a bucket of water. Do you see waves in that bucket? No. You take a tub of water. As you increase the volume of water, you reach a stage where, I don't know whether Powai Lake, does it have waves? At some stage, even though it is fresh water, it has waves. Like you go to the backwaters of Kerala, has waves. What creates the waves? Just the vastness of the body of water. It's a vast body of water, creates waves. 5 trees in a meadow, pleasure. 25 trees, pleasure. At some stage, when you get to thousands of trees, it becomes frightening. Have you been to a forest where there are just thousands of trees? It's frightening. Why does the fear come? Because of sheer vastness. Same thing. You put a very talkative person. You know, there is a lady who lives in South Bombay, and she tells me every time I come here, can you give me a ride? And one day, very service-mindedly, I said, sure, please come along. And in that 1 hour and 15-minute journey, you got to believe it, she talked non-stop. By the time we reached here, I was tired. That same lady who speaks non-stop, you ask her to speak to 5 people, effortlessly she will talk. 25 people, she gets excited. Suddenly you put her here on stage and say, will you announce 2 items for 2 minutes? You know what happens? Nervous, stage fright. It's the same thing. The worlds have appeared on Brahman because of the vastness of Brahman, the waking dream and deep sleep states have come. The entire universe, which is millions and millions of light years away from one end to the other, is a minor disturbance, it's just a slight fluctuation in the vast expanse of Brahman. That Brahman is you. right now. Very difficult to accept. So that's what he's saying. Mama Maya, this is my Maya. This is the illusion, this is the projection. Don't get caught up with the illusion. Don't get caught up with the waves. Understand the ocean. Because if you identify with a particular wave, then you get that. You have to go through the ups and downs of the birth and the growth, and then you come crashing down and die. But as these changes are taking place, if you identify with only ocean, you enjoy the changes that are happening. How many of us enjoy it? As you grow old, suddenly one tooth gets loose and falls off. You say, oh my God, I'm growing old. Enjoy it. Your hair is falling, enjoy it. You fall down and hurt yourself, enjoy it. Because it's like the wave. You are the ocean. You can neither increase nor can you decrease. You are what you are. Next verse.